During family dinner, Dad said, "We're selling your startup. It's now worth $3.2 billion. $3.2 billion. The words hung in the air like smoke as I turned my phone screen toward my family. Their faces froze in perfect tableaus of shock, Dad's signature pen slipping from his fingers, leaving an ugly blue stain on Mom's pristine white tablecloth. Jessica's wine glass suspended halfway to her lips, her smirk evaporating as the color drained from her face. "That's billion with a B," I clarified, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Not the 1.8 million you were about to sell my little project for." I picked up the transfer papers Dad had just signed with such finality. "These are worthless. The patent's in my name, not Hargrove Engineering's." Dad's face transformed from shock to fury in seconds. "You can't do that," he sputtered, reaching for the documents I now held safely out of reach. "The company funded." "Nothing," I cut him off. "Uncle Jack's trust funded it. The one he left me before you pushed him out of the company. I never took a penny of Hargrove money." I smiled, remembering Uncle Jack's last words to me, "They'll never see your value until you force them to look up, kid." Well, they were certainly looking up now. "My name is Emily Hargrove, I'm 29 years old, and I just became a billionaire by outsmarting the family that never believed in me." But to understand how we got to that dinner table moment, we need to go back a few years. I was always the quiet Hargrove. The one people forgot was in the room. The brainy one with impractical ideas, who wouldn't contribute meaningfully to the family business. At least, that's how they described me at every opportunity. The smell of grilled steaks wafted across the deck of my family's Lake Michigan vacation home as I arrived that fateful evening. I adjusted the collar of my plain blue blouse, immediately feeling underdressed next to my sister Jessica's designer sundress. My weathered backpack, containing 3 years of energy storage research, sat heavy beside my chair as I took my seat. Dad barely looked up from his phone. "You're late." "Traffic from the lab," I explained, though no one was listening. Jessica was already regaling Mom with stories of her latest corporate acquisition, another startup gutted for parts and patents, its founders left with nothing but worthless stock certificates and broken dreams. It was Jessica's specialty: find promising companies, buy them through Hargrove Engineering, strip them of innovation, fire the talent, and claim the success as her own. "The founder actually cried," Jessica laughed, swirling her wine. "Can you believe it? As if his little battery management system was special. We have 3 others just like it." I bit my tongue. His system wasn't like the others, it was revolutionary until Jessica's team dismantled it and buried the core technology. I knew because I'd studied his patents extensively. "Emily," Mom said with that particular tone she reserved for her disappointments, "couldn't you have worn something nicer? This is a family dinner." "Sorry," I muttered, accepting the plate Dad's housekeeper handed me. "Lab clothes." "Always the lab," Dad sighed, finally putting down his phone. 3 years since Stanford and still playing with batteries in a garage. I stared at my steak. They had no idea what I'd been building. No clue that playing with batteries meant developing an energy storage matrix that could revolutionize everything from smartphones to power grids. And I'd made damn sure they wouldn't find out until it was too late. It started after graduation. With my Stanford engineering degree and multiple academic awards, I thought Dad might finally see my potential. I'd developed a theoretical framework for a new type of energy storage during my senior year, something that could hold 10 times the power in half the space with minimal degradation. "Interesting theory," Dad had said after my presentation, checking his watch repeatedly. "But Hargrove Engineering deals in practical applications, not academic exercises." Instead, he gave the R&D funding to Jessica's acquisition department. That night, Uncle Jack found me crying in the garden. Uncle Jack, Dad's brother and co-founder of Hargrove Engineering, was the only one who ever believed in me. "Your father sees the world through quarterly reports," he told me, sitting beside me on the stone bench. He's forgotten what it means to build something revolutionary. 2 months later, Uncle Jack was pushed out of the company he helped create. Strategic differences, Dad called it. The day before he left, Uncle Jack invited me to his office. "They're going to come for your ideas one day," he warned, sliding a file across his desk. "When they finally realize what you're capable of, they'll try to take it. So beat them at their own game." The file contained trust documents. Uncle Jack had liquidated his company shares and created a research trust in my name, $25 million to build whatever I wanted, however I wanted, completely independent from Hargrove Engineering. "One more thing," he said, handing me a small leather notebook. "Keep 2 sets of research. The real one, and the one you let them see." Uncle Jack died 6 months later, heart attack, they said. At the funeral, Dad was already discussing how to redistribute Jack's former responsibilities. Jessica was calculating how his departure affected her advancement timeline. I was planning my independence. For 3 years, I lived a double life. To my family, I was eccentric Emily with her garage lab and inconsistent results. The family charity case who needed time to find herself. They saw exactly what I wanted them to see, a struggling researcher with promising but problematic technology. Meanwhile, I was building an entirely different reality. Using Uncle Jack's trust, I assembled a team of brilliant researchers, many of them victims of Jessica's acquisition strategy. We established a remote facility in Nevada, disguised as a solar farm. We filed patents under my personal name, not Hargrove Engineering. We created something extraordinary while my family was busy underestimating me. Emily, Dad began that evening, swirling his scotch as the evening sun glinted off Lake Michigan. "We need to discuss your little project's funding situation." I set down my fork, my appetite vanishing instantly. Here it comes, I thought. The moment Uncle Jack had warned me about. "What about it?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "The executive committee feels it's time to cut our losses," he said, sliding a document across the cedar table. "We're selling the energy division to Archer Global." Jessica smirked behind her wine glass. Finally. That garage setup was embarrassing for the Hargrove name. "But we're close to a breakthrough," I protested, following the script I'd rehearsed countless times. "The density tests are showing unprecedented results." "Promising isn't profitable," Dad cut in. "Hargrove Engineering needs certainty, not theories." "I've already arranged the sale." Mom dabbed her lips with her napkin. "Darling, it's time to do something practical. Jessica's division is bringing in real revenue." "By buying up startups and gutting their innovations," I muttered. "By making money," Jessica shot back. "While you play with your batteries in the garage." Dad pushed the papers closer. "Sign the transfer documents. Archer is offering $1.8 million for the entire project." $1.8 million. I almost laughed. "Dad, the potential applications alone are worthless without proof," he interrupted, sighing. I felt a surge of righteous anger. They had no idea that the garage setup was merely a front. That the real research happened in a state-of-the-art facility, with 42 researchers working around the clock. That we'd already achieved what everyone in the energy sector thought impossible. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Then again. And again. "Popular tonight," Jessica sneered. With trembling fingers, not from fear but from anticipation, I pulled out my phone. 3 messages from the patent office marked urgent lit up my screen. I opened the first one, Energy Storage Matrix Patent #US 2938471 approved. The second, Breakthrough Designation granted. The third made my heart soar, initial bidding offer starting at $2.9 billion. Please advise. Perfect timing. I looked up at Dad, who was already signing the transfer papers with his engraved pen. About that signature. It's done, he declared, finishing with a flourish. Time to join the real world, Emily. Interesting timing, I said calmly, turning my phone to face them. The patent office seems to disagree about worthless theories. The pen clattered from Dad's hand, leaving an ink stain on the white tablecloth. Jessica's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Mom's fork hit her plate with a sharp clang. 2.9, Jessica choked. Billion, I finished. Not million. Billion. And that's just the starting bid. I stood, gathering my backpack. These, I held up the transfer documents, are worthless. The patent's in my name, not Hargrove Engineering's. I registered it privately last month. You can't do that, Dad sputtered. The company funded. Nothing, I corrected. Uncle Jack's trust funded it. The one he left me before you pushed him out of the company. I never took a penny of Hargrove money. I smiled, remembering Uncle Jack's last words, they'll never see your value until you force them to look up, kid. My phone buzzed again. Excuse me, I said, reading the new message. That's Tesla raising the bid to $3.2 billion. Shall we discuss who's joining the real world now? The deck fell silent except for the soft lapping of waves against the shore. I pulled out my tablet, displaying the energy matrix simulation that had consumed my life for 3 years. Let me show you what you were about to sell for pocket change. The display lit up, showing energy patterns flowing through a crystalline matrix structure. Dad's face paled as he recognized the implications. Energy storage with 98% efficiency at ambient temperature, I explained, rotating the display. Charge cycles in the hundreds of thousands without degradation. Every major tech and automotive company has been trying to solve this for decades. But your reports showed inconsistent results, Jessica stammered. I laughed softly. Those reports. Carefully crafted decoys. I learned from watching you, Jessica, how you strip innovations from startups we acquire. Did you really think I'd leave my real research vulnerable? Mom's hands trembled as she reached for the wine bottle. Emily, surely we can discuss this as a family. Like you discussed selling my life's work. I swiped through more patent documents on my tablet. Oh, and it's not just one patent. I filed 8. Dad's face had turned an interesting shade of gray. 8. Energy storage, cooling systems, manufacturing process, charging infrastructure, I listed, each word making him flinch. Conservative estimates value the complete patent portfolio at $12 billion, but that's probably low considering the aerospace applications. Another message lit up my phone. Speaking of aerospace applications, I smiled. That's NASA requesting an urgent meeting. Jessica knocked over her wine glass, red liquid seeping into the white tablecloth. You played us. No, sister dear. I protected myself from the family that was supposed to protect me. I stood, straightening my blouse. Dad reached for the transfer papers again. As CEO of Hargrove Engineering. You might want to hold that thought, I interrupted, pulling out one final document. Remember when you made me sign those routine, subsidiary papers last month? The ones you didn't bother to read carefully. His hands froze. Turn to page 32, paragraph 8, I suggested, where it details the automatic transfer of voting shares in the event of attempted intellectual property appropriation. Mom gasped as Dad frantically flipped through the pages. I checked my watch, 18 minutes ago, when you tried to force the sale of my research, I became majority shareholder of Hargrove Engineering Solutions. The sound of multiple phones buzzing filled the stunned silence. The news was breaking. I placed my napkin on the table. I believe my first act as controlling shareholder should be calling an emergency board meeting. Dad, you'll want to prepare your retirement speech. I gathered my things, pausing at the deck door. And Jessica, clean out your office. Your history of destroying acquired startups is our first agenda item. The setting sun cast long shadows across the deck, highlighting the chaos I'd left on the dinner table. Spilled wine, scattered papers, and shattered illusions. My phone buzzed again with another bid, but I was no longer interested in selling. I had bigger plans for my energy revolution, and this was just the beginning. The Hargrove Engineering boardroom hummed with tension the next morning. I arrived early, dressed not in my usual lab clothes but in a tailored charcoal suit that had been delivered to my apartment overnight. Image matters when you're about to change everything. 12 board members filed in silently, stealing glances between me and my father, who gripped his seat at the head of the table like it might try to escape. Jessica slunk in last, her eyes red-rimmed and darting nervously. "What is the meaning of this emergency meeting?" Board member Lawrence Chin demanded, directing his question to my father. "The markets are in chaos. Our stock jumped 53% in pre-trading, and there are rumors about patents worth billions." Dad cleared his throat. "There's been a misunderstanding regarding some research Emily has been conducting." "It's no misunderstanding," I interrupted, nodding to my lawyer. Ms. Chen, no relation to Lawrence, stepped forward with stacks of folders. "Please distribute these documents to the board." Before we begin, Dad tried again, his voice straining for authority. "I want to address these ridiculous claims. Let's start with facts." I cut in, activating the room's display screens. "Ms. Chen, please explain the legal position." My lawyer stood, her voice precise and unwavering. "As detailed in your folders, Ms. Hargrove's energy technology patents are independently held and were developed without Hargrove Engineering resources. Furthermore, her acquisition of controlling shares is legally binding under Section 14 of the company charter, triggered by yesterday's attempted appropriation of her intellectual property." "Impossible," Jessica burst out from her seat near Dad. "She's never even attended a board meeting. She doesn't understand the business." I smiled, tapping my tablet. The screens around the boardroom came to life with security footage. "Actually, I've attended every board meeting for the past year. You just didn't notice me." The screens showed various IT staff and assistants in the background of recorded board meetings. In each clip, they wore different faces, different uniforms, all me, gathering intelligence while remaining invisible to a family that never really looked at me. "Digital identity masking," I explained. "Another patent in my portfolio. Amazing how invisible you become when people think you're just fixing the Wi-Fi." Dad's knuckles whitened on the armrests. "The board won't stand for this manipulation." "The board," I cut in, "might be more interested in this." I clicked to the next screen showing detailed records of Jessica's systematic dismantling of acquired startups, fired innovators, buried technologies, and destroyed potential, all to maintain the illusion of her strategic acquisition expertise. Jessica's face drained of color as her destructive pattern filled the screens. "These are confidential business strategies," she protested, half rising from her chair. "They're evidence of corporate sabotage and securities fraud," I corrected. "You didn't acquire companies to strengthen Hargrove, you destroyed innovations that might have threatened your position." Board member Eliza Patel from the audit committee leaned forward. "Is this accurate, Jessica?" Jessica looked desperately toward Dad. "It's standard industry practice." "Tell them, Dad." The silence from my father was deafening. "Ms. Hargrove," Mrs. Patel turned to me, her expression grave. "What exactly are you proposing?" I stood, walking to the window overlooking the Chicago skyline. For a moment, I saw my reflection superimposed over the city, no longer invisible, no longer dismissed. Hargrove Engineering was founded on genuine innovation by my grandfather. Not theft, not intimidation, but real breakthroughs. I'm proposing we return to those principles. My phone buzzed again. The bidding for the patents had reached $4.5 billion. I ignored it. "Effective immediately, I'm restructuring the company." The door opened and a group of familiar faces entered, engineers and innovators Jessica had pushed out over the years. "They're your new department heads." "This is absurd," Dad sputtered. "You can't just." "I can. And I have one more surprise." I nodded to Ms. Chen, who distributed another set of documents. "The energy storage technology. It's just the beginning. Meet Project Firefly." The screens filled with designs and simulations that made the board members gasp. Even Jessica leaned forward, her anger momentarily forgotten. What is this?" Lawrence Chen whispered. "The future," I replied simply. "And it's already built." The boardroom screens displayed a massive facility in Nevada, an energy research center larger than 5 football fields. "While you thought I was tinkering in the garage, I built the world's most advanced energy research facility, funded entirely by Uncle Jack's trust and private investors who actually understand innovation." "Impossible," Jessica breathed. "The construction alone would have been noticed." "By your corporate spies?" I smiled. They were too busy dismantling startups to notice the real work happening right under their noses. I pulled up the facility's test results. 3 weeks ago, we achieved continuous output exceeding 98% efficiency. Last week, we integrated it with solar capture systems. Yesterday, we signed preliminary contracts with 3 major automotive manufacturers. The board members' phones started buzzing simultaneously as the markets reacted to each revelation. Hargrove Engineering stock was soaring. "But that's not all," I continued, clicking to the next screen. "Dr. Martinez, would you like to explain your department's breakthrough?" A woman Jessica had fired 3 years ago stepped forward, her voice steady, but her eyes gleaming with vindication. "Using Ms. Hargrove's energy matrix, we've developed a scalable system that can power everything from smartphones to entire city blocks. The prototype is ready for demonstration." Dad finally found his voice. "You can't just." "These people were terminated." "Illegally terminated," I corrected, after they refused to let Jessica steal their research. Dr. Martinez was developing an integrated cooling system that Jessica claimed was redundant. That cooling system is now integral to Project Firefly. I nodded to security. "Please escort my sister to her office to collect her things. The SEC's Corporate Fraud Division would like to ask her some questions." "You can't do this," Jessica shouted as 2 security officers approached. "We're family." "Family doesn't steal from family," I replied calmly. "Family doesn't undermine family. Family doesn't dismiss family's life work as a little project worth only pocket change." As Jessica was led out, still shouting about loyalty, I turned back to the board. "Now, let's discuss the real future of Hargrove Engineering." Dad, you might want to take notes. It'll be your last board meeting. The next 2 weeks transformed Hargrove Engineering more dramatically than the previous 20 years. With Jessica facing multiple federal investigations and Dad effectively sidelined, I implemented changes that would have been unthinkable before. The acquisitions department was disbanded. The executive floor, once a fortress of closed doors and private dining rooms, was converted into an innovation lab where engineers and researchers collaborated openly. The company jet was sold, and the executive retreat in Aspen was converted into a research station. Most importantly, I brought back the people Jessica had pushed out, brilliant minds who had been discarded because they prioritized innovation over office politics. "You've changed everything," remarked Sarah Linder, our new head of development, as we walked through the transformed headquarters. "I never thought I'd set foot in this building again," after Jessica had security escort me out 2 years ago. "The building is the same," I replied, watching teams of engineers collaborating in spaces that once held executive suites. "It's the purpose that's different." My father, unsurprisingly, wasn't taking his demotion well. I found him in his former office, now a communal design space, removing his personal items under security supervision. You won't get away with this, he muttered as I entered. The shareholders are ecstatic, I finished, showing him my tablet displaying the stock ticker. We're up 128% since the takeover. Turns out investors prefer actual innovation to corporate cannibalism. He slammed a trophy into his box. You planned this? All of it, the patents, the shares, the facility. 3 years, I nodded, leaning against what used to be his mahogany desk, now a collaborative workstation. Ever since you laughed at my initial energy proposal, and gave the funding to Jessica's acquisition department instead. That day, I learned that sometimes the best way to protect innovation is to hide it from those who would steal it. I built this company, he said, his voice breaking slightly. No, grandfather built this company. You and Jessica nearly destroyed it. I handed him a folder. Your retirement package. The board approved it unanimously this morning. He took it with shaking hands. And if I refuse? Then we proceed with the audit of your involvement in Jessica's acquisition strategy. The preliminary findings suggest you knew exactly what she was doing to those companies and their founders. His face paled. You wouldn't. I didn't want to, I said honestly. But you taught me an important lesson, Dad. Business is business. As he left, escorted by security like so many innovators before him, I felt no triumph, only a strange hollow sensation. Revenge wasn't as satisfying as I'd imagined. Building would be better than destroying. The real victory came later that week when we unveiled Project Firefly to the public. The press conference was held at the Nevada facility, with hundreds of journalists watching as we demonstrated the technology that would revolutionize energy storage globally. Ms. Hargrove, one reporter called out, how does it feel to go from unknown researcher to the head of a technology revolution practically overnight? I thought about the years of being dismissed, of working in secret, of protecting my vision from the very people who should have supported it. It wasn't overnight, I answered. Great innovations rarely are. But sometimes the world only sees the breakthrough moment, not the 1,000 days of work that made it possible. And your sister's arrest, another shouted. Your father's retirement. Any comment on the family drama? I met his gaze steadily. Hargrove Engineering is returning to its founding principle, innovation that improves lives. The company's leadership reflects that commitment now. Later, as the demonstration concluded and the crowd dispersed, Dr. Martinez approached me. You didn't mention that the Nevada facility is already manufacturing units, she noted. Or that we've started construction on 3 more facilities internationally. They'll find out soon enough, I replied, watching workers prepare the first production line of energy cells. I want them to see the results, not just hear promises. Like your family saw with you, she asked perceptively. I smiled. Exactly. Let's not tell people what we're building, let's show them. 1 month after the takeover, Hargrove Engineering headquarters pulsed with different energy. The oppressive executive culture had been replaced with collaborative innovation. Patents were flowing at 5 times the previous rate. Most importantly, our technology was already making a difference. I stood in my grandfather's restored office, now mine, watching the sunrise over Lake Michigan. The Nevada facility's latest results scrolled across my tablet: grid-scale storage solutions, microgrid implementation plans for developing nations, and integrated systems that made fossil fuels increasingly obsolete. Ms. Hargrove, my assistant, entered. Your mother's here, and the federal investigators need you to review your sister's case files. I turned from the window, straightening my blazer. How's Mom looking? Different. No designer handbag today. I nodded. Send her in. Mom entered hesitantly, and I almost didn't recognize her. Gone were the society clothes and superior air. She wore simple business attire and carried a folder. The lake house is sold, she said quietly. Your father's retirement papers are signed. And Jessica? Cooperating with the investigation. Mom sank into a chair. The evidence, it was worse than we thought. She didn't just dismantle innovations, she destroyed lives. I know, I replied, pulling up files on the wall screen. That's why I tracked every engineer she ruined. Many are back now, leading their own divisions. You gave them their careers back. I gave them what they earned. I turned to face her fully. Something this family forgot how to do. Mom opened her folder with trembling hands. I found these in your father's study, your childhood sketches, energy equations from high school. Even then, you were trying to show us, for years. And you saw what you wanted to see, I said, not unkindly. The quiet daughter, the garage tinkerer, the family disappointment. We were the disappointment, she whispered. Your grandfather, he would have been so proud. I walked to the wall where I'd hung my grandfather's original patents alongside my own. Uncle Jack knew before he died. He left me a letter with the trust. The quiet ones are building while the loud ones are talking, he wrote. And what they build will change everything. My phone buzzed. Another breakthrough from Nevada, implementation costs reduced by 40%. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes, I said, gathering my files. We're announcing the new Global Access Initiative today. Would you like to stay? Mom looked surprised. I don't have a position anymore. Actually, I pulled out a document. I have a proposal. Grandfather's foundation needs restructuring. It should be funding young innovators, not country club memberships. Interested? Her eyes filled with tears. After everything we did. The past is past, I said firmly. The question is, what will you build now? The office doors opened and Dr. Martinez entered with the implementation team, their faces shining with excitement. Another breakthrough ready to change the world. Time to start the meeting, I told Mom. Are you joining us? She stood, squaring her shoulders. Yes, it's time I learned what real innovation looks like. As we walked to the boardroom, my phone buzzed again. The stock had hit another record high. Jessica had pleaded guilty to all charges. Dad's retirement was official. But those weren't the messages that mattered. The one that counted was from our field team in Kenya, First Village Microgrid Online. 2,000 people have electricity for the first time. We're changing lives. I paused in the hallway, thinking about the journey. From the dismissed daughter to the architect of a global energy revolution. From the family disappointment to the visionary leader. The revenge had been sweet, but the rebuilding was sweeter. You know, I told my mother as we entered the boardroom filled with eager faces, Uncle Jack was right about one more thing. What's that? She asked. He said that true innovation isn't about destroying what exists, it's about building what should exist. Dad and Jessica were so busy acquiring and dismantling that they forgot how to create. Mom nodded slowly. And you never forgot. No, I said, taking my place at the head of the table. And neither will this company. Not again. The meeting began with presentations on how our technology was already changing lives across the globe. As I watched the faces around the table, excited, engaged, passionate about building rather than acquiring, I realized the true victory wasn't the billions, the patents, or even the revenge. It was restoration. Restoring the company to its innovative roots. Restoring opportunities to those who had been discarded. Restoring purpose to technology that could genuinely improve lives. The quiet ones build revolutions. And my revolution was just beginning. If my story resonated with you, please like, share and subscribe for more stories.